Welcome back. Let's start with a map depicting Europe somewhere around 1520. In the west, we see unified nation-states, the kingdoms of England, France, and Spain, strong and consolidated monarchies adjacent to the rim of the Atlantic Ocean. Central Europe is more fragmented, even if the Spanish and the Austrian Habsburgs, two branches of the same royal family, control much of it. The entity known as the Holy Roman Empire, surrounded on this map by a bright red border, was gradually becoming an archaic political form. It was an elective monarchy composed of scores of principalities, duchies, counties, even so-called free imperial cities. It was not an empire in the traditional sense. So you see the contrast here. Fragmentation in Central and Eastern Europe, and more unified polities in the states of Western Europe, where much of the new political and military power is becoming concentrated at the dawn of the 16th century. The European states can be further distinguished by their modes of governance, those that are ruled absolutely and those that are ruled constitutionally. Let's examine the first, the absolutist, through the example of France. As the French kingdom consolidated, the French nobility steadily lost power until they reached the point where, under Louis XIV, many of the great French noble families lived in the palace at Versailles, where the Sun King, as Louis was known, could keep a closer eye on them so that they didn't engage in any subversive political activity. It's the kind of domination that characterizes absolute monarchy, which is nearly always developed at the expense of the traditional ruling class, the landowning nobility. It's a common feature of absolutist states, and we see it not only in France, but in Spain, Russia, and Prussia as well, all absolutist monarchies, with power concentrated in the hands of a single sovereign, often with administrative bureaucracies serving his or her interests. As opposed to the unlimited power that an absolute monarch wields, a constitutional monarch has limited powers, often restricted by an elected body, such as a parliament, or a legal document, such as a constitution, or both. A prominent example of a constitutional monarchy at this time is the Kingdom of England. The British monarch shared power with members of Parliament, consisting of the House of Lords and the House of Commons, who possessed certain legislative rights that they jealously guarded from the power of the king. In fact, the English fought a civil war over precisely that issue in the 17th century, pitting the parliamentarians, led by Oliver Cromwell, against the royalists, who were led by supporters of the monarch, Charles I, who was later beheaded by Cromwell's followers. Both forms of state, absolutist and constitutional, have certain common elements. In both cases, authority is concentrated in the hands of the state. In both cases, state authority is exercised quite conspicuously through tax collection as a means of enhancing state revenues, which are often put to use in realizing royal prerogatives, including war. In both absolutist and constitutional states, the notion of an established religion is key. In every European state, there's an official state religion in one form or another at this time, be it Protestant, Calvinist, or Catholic. Not surprisingly, the civil wars fought during this era were, in many ways, religious conflicts. European states existed in relation to each other, and their competition, their conflict, becomes one of the driving forces of this entire period. In Europe, that competition is often focused on the development of military technology. Competitive innovations in warfare proceed very quickly as one state attempts to gain an advantage over another. The development of artillery, more effective firearms, and more powerful warships, all this is characteristic of the 17th century European nation-states. Alongside this development is the notion called balance of power, the doctrine that no one state should be stronger than all of the others. In reality, it was more like the pendulum of power, with dominance shifting among the great European nation-states. Toward the end of the 16th century, the Spanish were the dominant power, and much of the day's diplomacy was devoted to attempting to control Spain's reach. 100 years later, the French were dominant, and much of European diplomacy was devoted to constraining it. In our next lecture, we'll examine European economics, science, and technology in this critical period of global history. I think you'll enjoy it. Until next time, best wishes.